Okay, Manami, in looking at this piece, it looks like you have the actual image is kind of only this piece, but you've got all of this space around it. I'm wondering if that's necessary and if focusing on these elements would actually be more helpful because you've got these lovely delicate areas in here. Also, let's have a look at this piece because I can see some joins here, and I'm wondering if maybe you want to make something of that so that the actual join becomes less obvious. The delicacy in this is to do with the sewing that you've got, and I like this piece overall. I'm wondering if there is some more toning together you could do. Like, for instance, I'm wondering why these bits don't go off to the side, like they all are finished in around the same place. That's not a big deal. I'm just wondering if there are things you now, in retrospect, now that you've had a bit more time, that you could look to improve. Okay, next one. Okay, so this piece I like as well because it's moving into, you're using some really subtle little, oopsies, you're using some subtle little repetitions in the work. The only thing I would suggest is maybe this part here could be a bit bigger. Maybe not because I know she's supposed to be standing on top of it. Just to maybe link all these parts a little bit more and make it a little bit more unified. That's my only suggestion. Because I think you've got a lot of negative space in it, and these parts have got these divisions which separate them out, but it's still quite similar tonally to your background. Okay, next one. Okay, so this is not actually the whole image, is it? Is this the whole image of your print? So there's a couple of things here. I'm wondering if the actual image, to me the actual photograph looks like it's slightly blurry, which is accentuating this off registration that you've got. So if you want to minimize the off registration, I think we need to look at this photograph and maybe look at scanning it because it looks a little bit blurry, and that's adding to this feeling of registration being slightly off. And that registration being off only really is very, very strong in the blue and the red, and I'm wondering if there's something you can do to add to that. This is a print, but if you wanted to work over parts of it, you totally could, and make it mixed media. The koi part, to me, are the strongest, so I'm wondering even if you add some tone in here, very subtle tone, and fade out, how that might bring more focus to the fish. And it's probably these little areas too that add to the sense of lack of registration. So imagine if you coloured those out. Let's change that colour to a blue. That'll probably be better. Not quite the right blue, but imagine if you had that sort of coming out here just very subtly, which would connect to the blue here and break down some of the registration and bring more focus to your koi. I think that this texture you've got is really nice, but it is very everywhere, if you know what I mean. You've got some of it lacking in here, but that's really only it. So imagine if you sort of just added a little bit of even watercolour shadow to your koi here to bring the focus to them a little bit more. You could probably do it with pencil or pen and have the liney parts, kind of like I'm having now, but just see what you think. You can do a photocopy of it, try it on the photocopy, and those of course would make excellent little additions to your process portfolio. Okay, so this is not a fabulous photo for your work. In fact, it doesn't seem to have the whole of the artwork in. Like down here, these bits are cut off. You can't do that for a piece of work. Also, these kinds of things in the background we've got to get rid of. You need to have a couple of photos of this because you've got these focal areas here that you don't want to miss. And like these bits, I think, while we talked about it being a bit rough, we've got that kind of mixed texture in here. be aware of small little imperfections and what they might communicate to the viewer, okay? All right, studio piece 5. Okay, so when we get to this part here, let's go back a bit. This part here where you've got the text. Okay, come back here, little guy. This here where you've got the text. So the text finishes like that, and I'm just wondering, so you've got this section here. Oh, it won't let me write over it. You've got the section on the left here, which is very, dominant with overlapping, and yet that dominance of overlapping is not balanced everywhere. I'm wondering why you have these spaces here and here and here, and why they are not included with text, whereas you've got some other areas which look like super busy. The rest of it, I really think this part where you've got the circuit board, that's super effective here. The only thing that really distracts me, if I look at it, all of that, really clever, this part here with the, wait for it again, the text. Just have a look at it, see if you think it's balanced and whether it needs to be. Even, actually, maybe the GIF needs to be just the teeniest bit slower as well, okay? Have a think about that. Do a little experimentation with it to see how you can improve it. Okay, let's have a look at your artist intention statements to do with your exhibition now. All right, so when I have a look at this, I don't see, also, just while I notice it, and I did notice it on the other one, don't have your signature in there. You need to keep your work anonymous so that the examiner doesn't have any idea who you are. You don't need to have the specific date in. So this, don't put this up here unless you want it in the title. You don't need to have that in there at all. This is good. Good. Okay. This is a really well-written artist intention statement. I don't think you really need to do much there. Okay. Now, this means that's the size you want to print it. That's really, really big, mate. So I don't think you want to do that. Actually, you know what you could do? Give it to me. Can you give me this file and we will look to print it off in-house and see what it looks like at that size. Okay, again, we don't need to do that. Okay. Let's read through this. Yeah, you're very good. You've really worked on these. And then the inclusion of flowers and symbols. Okay, I'm curious, just the last thing I want to say, I think this is very well written again. I really don't think you need to do much here, but what I think you want to think about is the true form that you've got in here. What's the part that's idealized with her? Is it intended to be a bit messy in this bottom one? So I guess I'm saying, can you make that a little bit clearer to the more realistic form or something like that? Because it's not super obvious that it's really messy or dirty in the bottom one. It might be when you print it off, if you print it off a lot larger, but again, I think this might be a slightly unrealistic size. That's 2 meters, 1.5 meters by 2. Is that detail going to hold up? Yeah? Okay. Yeah, reduction what though? Lino. Put reduction lino print so they know that it's a what media you used for it. I don't think you need its. You could put its integral to society and that would be fine. Traditional colours, red and white, represent strength, self-sacrifice and purity. The layered blue and red of the water ripples show the movement of the water. See, okay, so that's interesting, but the red is far more dominant, isn't it? So I'm not sure if that's convincing, or whether you need to reinforce it with something else too, like something else, reworking the media. The koi are beautiful in this, Manami. The flowers and the background a little bit distract from them still while I'm looking at it. Yeah, I think, again, your artist intention statements, mate, you've done a good job of writing these. Just let me check if you have checked the 500 character. I'm sure you have, but I'm just saying it out loud to make sure that we include that. Again, you don't need this. Mixed media assemblage, I don't think you need this. I think that's fine. I like the title. Yeah, again, very well written artist intention statement. Did you use Nevelson in this? You don't mention any artist influence. You are starting to reuse the word identity, creating a sense of connection and consumerism, which I really, really like. Okay, let's have a look here. Here where you say animation, I would put GIF. You've come up with very clever names, Manami. Okay. This symbol throughout development of human society, talk to me a little bit more about that. Maybe there's a better way to rephrase it, because I'm not aware of any particular symbols that you mean. It does mean fertility, I've seen that, but like, what are you specifically meaning by that? Let's make it more specific so you sound researched and intelligent, like you are, like you have done the research. I know you have. So I guess this part here is very obvious to me when I look at the circuit board. Like, I think that's amazing and it's very clever. I'm not sure about the words in the animation again. This comes back to, I'm not quite sure of their purpose there or the style of them in there. Like, do you want the message clearly read or do you want it not? Just be aware of that. Yeah, again, very well written, Manami. You've done a really good job on those. So let's go back, and now we're going to have a look at your process portfolio. Okay, so so it looks like you've still got these lovely pages first early on in your book. I'm going to change this yellow here. I want you, these are very easy things to fix. Please don't leave them to the end of your course to get rid of. So here it would be really useful for you to talk about, so you've labelled this complex symbols and imagery, but is it? Like, how is it? And what is it for? So we also then need the so what. Where's your direction after doing this thinking, What's it for? What are you trying to make? What's your intention with this, these complex symbols and imagery? Okay, some of this, my dear, is a little hard to read. I'm reading it on an iPad Pro, which is about the size of the normal laptops that we have, and that's a little tricky. An examiner may look at them on that size of device, so you want to make sure everything is clear. Okay, you've got sources, that's really good. There's a lot of really basic stuff that you've already got in here that you don't need to come back in and do, all right? One thing I would be making sure of for you, you've got, this is your study of Mario Anziri, and you've got the artist method. I love this, where you're starting to look and you really are understanding what's the purpose of these. Do you know what I mean? It's hard to see them, they're very light. Also, here you're looking at vocab, I'm identifying that, and that's really good. Again, on this page, if at all possible, it'd be good for you to include a little bit of the so what. I've looked at the artist, I'm going to write it over here. On each page, it's good for you guys to get into the habit of, okay, I've done this, so what? What do I do with it now? Okay, we're moving on. So, this one is, again, it's similar to the other one. There's some parts that are a little bit light, and I'd probably consider that and make sure that your idea is clear. Like this actually, if you think about this space over here, you're actually taking up space on your screen, which could be used to add your so what. It could be used to add other elements. Okay. You are really, in these pieces, you really are reflecting well. The other thing you want to make sure, here you've got, but I want to use a black and white piece as a base, but why? What does that communicate? Remember, everything is experimenting and teaching you and you're learning, but also, it also should be relating to your outcomes, your intention. Like, what is your intention? It's not like super clear on this page or this page what your intention is, like where is this work going right now? You're experimenting on another friend, I know that, but you don't have a so what. Like, I don't even know what kind of piece you're trying to design here yet. This page, these are really hard to see. I would be putting text boxes and adding the text on. I really love this experimentation in here. This page is quite text heavy. Just be aware of that. I'd maybe almost think these should be larger or something. And again, process for what? Maybe you need to, like some of these you could chop out, and I don't mean get rid of, but I do mean like, so here it almost looks like this comes down here, and move somewhere else and see if you can add in a little space to add the so what. You don't talk, remember, have a look at Alejandra's in the examples I gave you, because she's gone through and labelled every page, and you could probably just shrink this page just the teeniest bit, and then up the top of your actual slide or screen add some additional notes. Remember that you're looking at the criteria, and the criteria are asking you to look at in your process portfolio, you need to not only show your technical skills, but you need to look at communication of ideas and intentions, and that's both visually and written. But if you cover your bases with visual and written, you are hitting it out of the park in terms of making a clear pathway for the examiner to see how you've achieved that criteria. Okay, and again, not sure how this relates. You need to have some, and it's very simple, do some linking work between screens so that it shows, okay, so I've experimented with this and I'm doing it or not because of. I experimented with this, and this led me to think something else. Now after that, I think this, because you don't really have in here clearly why you're including the sewing in this work and to the painting. Where did this jump come from? Who does it involve? Does it relate to an artist? If so, where did it come from? You know, you've got to, and then you've got to include the so what. I've done this, and now. You've got a little bit in here, title for my artwork, but that's it's kind of lost. I would be highlighting that. Do you know what I mean? Making sure it's really clear that this is what I've done. We look at all this study, and this is where I've ended up. And now follow me to the next stage. Okay. Okay, I'm loving this. You've got really clear connections being made. This is quite a good page. Some of it's a little bit light. I'd probably go over that with a pen. Again, this here is a little bit light. Again, remember, so what? You've studied this artist. What project is it linked to? How did it inform you? How did it help you grow as an artist? Yeah? All right. Now, media exploration, towards what? Where are you going? Yeah? And make this very clear, all photographs taken by me. You are pretty good at explaining what's happening within the context of the page, and so I want you to consider how you can link between pages. This page is not as well laid out as that in terms of interest, and this page is really strong, and this page not as much. There's a lot of bulk of writing over here. So next, but for what? Okay, mate? Just little linking things. You can add them on as text boxes. You've got some lovely little spaces to make things a bit clearer. That could totally work. Okay, so this page is full of thinking. So this is your contact sheet. This here, you've identified the one you've used, but why? Why is this the one you want? What does it suggest, and how does it connect to your idea? Okay, here, lovely. You've connected to the idea of reflection. Okay. You don't need to have the model in. I would probably remove names if you can, so there's no sort of clear connection to where you are and what place you are. This where you're starting to add these things on, like keeping it visual and adding these little embellishments where you're thinking, it can really show your thinking, and you are guiding the examiner through on this page a lot of decision making about your composition. You want this consistency throughout. Again, watch some of this lightness. Now you can either write over it, add a text box, or we can try and darken it in Photoshop. Okay, brainstorm for what? Which piece are you doing? I love the drawing. Where's the connection to you? What's really interesting to me is, where are you saying here? Japanese culture? Oh yeah, because I'm Japanese. I kind of feel like that should be a little bit more front and centre, because your work is looking at, so maybe try and highlight that a little bit, like why? Bring this out. You've got this one little word, but you don't want it to be hard for the examiner to see what you're doing. Okay. Now, holograph printing, reflection point, good to see. Now, you've said impacted my idea, and it's not enough to just say that, so what? Didn't help develop your idea, why? Where's your idea, Manami? Where is it really clear what you want to do? I love seeing the koi involved here. You've got the fishies here and Mount Fuji here, so you are already directing the examiner to see you have a viewpoint. I think you need to make this page like a little bit more sectioned off and colourful, and consider these things. So successful and interested. Okay, but what does that mean? This is my point. You can't just say that it's successful. Show your ability to think critically. You've got to clearly articulate how your ideas and intentions have been formed and developed. So then that says in the criteria, the work effectively communicates, this is where you want to move to the next level, how effectively communicates how technical skills, media and ideas have been assimilated or brought together to develop the work further. Now you're not doing that just by saying whether you're interested or not. Okay. I'm loving seeing the use of vocab here. Make sure that's consistently deep throughout. Your presentation is very good, but you do have some weaknesses that are very easy to fix. Your title for this whole page is this big. I'd probably reduce it, make it bolder, and then use this space to add more text. So you've got reflection, but how did any of this help guide your idea? Okay, good. There's a lot of text on here. I'd probably see, now that's not necessarily bad because you are explaining things, I'd probably see how you could break it down a little bit more to make it a little bit more visually engaging, because there's not a lot of visual work on here. And again, unsuccessful, so what? So I'm going to write this on here. So you've got successful, but why? In what way? So we're going to have the so what to each thing. So what to the experimentation? So what to the artist study? Add in that so what. I almost think, Manami, that these visual images, you could probably simplify the text, keep the little sketches, they're gorgeous. You could probably combine these two pages together, almost. Certainly, you could put more imagery on the page, I think. And then maybe I would probably look at recreating this page, keeping all the visual, and then refining the text and adding text boxes either over the top or on a new slide. So again, you're just naming whether you're not going deep enough to really achieve it. This where you've got drawing, love it. This is excellent, but there's a few, this is a little bit of a kind of page. You've got lots of good thinking, like this stuff's beautiful, but then all of this is just this. What's going on here? Making maquettes of the can and the shoe. It's very, I think it's also because it's a little bit black and white, but for instance, this section of the shoe part, this section could be connected to this page, and then this section could be connected to this page, and that would be a fantastically jam-packed, idea-packed full couple of screens. Yeah, and see, then you move on to the next one. So I think I'd move that. Now this page is not did you photograph this rather than scan it? Because it looks very dark. We can adjust this on Photoshop. Okay, I'm loving the visual. And see how you're making this a bit clearer now. That's really good. So these are the artists that you've looked at. Artists to consider. Okay, great. Yeah, there's a lot of excellent visual thinking going on this page. Okay, kiddo, this is cut off and I'm sure you know it if you looked at it, right? Like that's not good enough. Oh my goodness, Manami, come on, you know better than that. Okay, so this is really nice where I can see how you're connecting this artist to the breaking down of images, and that you've gone and you can see this here. And what's good about adding these little things in like a puzzle piece is I know your final in my mind, and that's already connected to it. See this really cool aspect of lines? I wonder if you could integrate that into the text or something in the piece instead of the text that you've got, because I don't really see so easily how you've got this artist integrated. You don't have to, but even, so I see here too, you've got this text, which maybe is where you're getting it from, but if you look at this text, there's not really any one area where it's super dominant, but if you have a look at yours, there's a section in it where the red comes up and it's really dominant over here, and you've got negative space over here. But Carson's piece here, it doesn't have a whole lot of negative space really at all. Okay, and that's what's creating the overall balance to it. So if that's what you're looking for, then I think you do need to revisit that text in the work. Okay, again, kiddo, these are cut off. I really like these experiments. So earlier on in your work, if you go back a couple of pages, you've talked about apples, you've talked about media, you've talked about technology, right? So all of a sudden then you've got these pieces with these humans in them. This one, granted, is about technology, but I don't really see how these are. So how are they furthering your idea? It feels like they're just a little bit maybe, and what you could add is something over here where it's not just based on technology, because it seems like a slight distraction from your process here because you're not talking about technology. So maybe you could include on this page something other than just technology to look at. Then it seems like you've just explored this option but gone back to technology, if that makes sense. Yeah, see here, there's too many types of, like you've got italic, you've got bold, I think there's too much going on, yeah? This page has got some good thinking on, but it's kind of not as tidy and as well put together as some of your other pages. Again, you're talking about what's easy on Photoshop, but actually, how does it connect to your intention? Easy or not is not really the issue, okay? Okay, so